Get Rich Education is brought to you by Norada Real Estate, the Real Asset Investor, and Highlands Residential Mortgage.
Are you on track to achieve your financial goals? Income-producing real estate is the most historically proven way to accumulate wealth and has created more financial freedom than any other means. Norada Real Estate provides everything you need to invest in the best turnkey cash flow rental properties. Our simple, proven system will help you create real wealth and passive monthly income. Get your free strategy session with our knowledgeable investment counselors at noradarealestate.com. That's Norada realestate.com.
Welcome to Get Rich Education with Keith Weinhold, giving you information and ideas on the investment that has turned more ordinary people into millionaires and billionaires than anything else, and can provide you with more wealth and happiness than you ever thought possible. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, and educator, Keith Weinhold.
Welcome to Get Rich Education. This is episode 136. I'm Keith Weinhold. Let's talk about ways for you to start increasing your income today. If you're an employee and you want a pay raise, well then don't ask your boss for one. Yeah, don't ask for one. Instead, you're going to give yourself a raise at work. I'm going to give you more on that later today. But first of all, if you own income property, here's a technique for how you can raise the rent on your tenants and make the rent increase stick so that your tenant will pay you the new higher rent amount and be less likely to vacate your property when they get the news of your increase. Now, delivering and presenting rent increase news to your tenant the right way, that's important because if it lands on them the wrong way, well, then you could be losing a tenant and losing income. When you want to raise the rent, just don't tell your tenant what the new rent will be. Yeah, don't let them know. See, let them decide on what the new rent amount will be. And here's what I mean, and I think it's best to give you an example, okay? Let's say that the way you used to do business and the way that you still do business is that you try to raise the rent from, say, $1,000 up to $1,040 after the first year. It's a $40 increase that you were trying for, and you would simply let the tenant know on a rent increase form that, well, hey, this is just what the new rent's going to be, going from, say, a $1,000 one-year lease to a $1,040 one-year lease, and that they could either take that deal or leave it. Okay, now that approach right there, that might feel pushy to your tenant. I want you to think about how your tenant is thinking and how your tenant perceives that more pushy, cut and dry stance of pay me this year, which is more than you paid me last year, or leave. Okay, I'm going to suggest that you take a different approach rather than that maybe perceived as pushy or take it or leave it approach, which you might have documented on a rental increase form in the past. Okay, instead, when you've reached the time that lease period's up for renewal, don't give them a rental increase form. And by the way, I do recommend you formalizing your notice, okay? Texting over the rent increase notice, it kind of breaks down that professional relationship that you primarily have with your tenant, and you might deliver a rent increase notice by email, but make it a form. Put it in a form and put that form as an attachment to the email. Keep it professional. Don't make it look like it's so negotiable. But see, what I do want you to do instead of giving them a rent increase form is give your tenant what I will call a lease renewal options form. Give them options. Your tenant likes having options. People like having options in life. Here's what you'll do on this renewal options form. Give them 3 options about hiking their current $1,000 rent in this way. Option A, renew a month-to-month lease for $1,075 per month. Option B, renew with a 1-year lease for $1,050. Option C, renew with a 2-year lease for $1,040 or something like that. Okay, again, option A, month-to-month at $1,075. B is a 1-year lease at $1,050. Or C, a 2-year lease at $1,040. Okay, now do you think $1,040 looks more attractive to the tenant now when they just had that no options increase from $1,000 to $1,040? Yeah, because now $1,040 is the lowest of the 3 options. It's the lowest of the 3 prices there and your 3 options. And consumers and renters And you and I too, we often price compare in this very way when we make regular consumer choices. Tenants are more likely to think, hey, well, this isn't so bad. I actually have some options here. All right, now what have you just done? See, you've empowered your tenant to have a choice. So instead of you giving them a rental increase form, call it a lease renewal options form. Again, I want you to think about how your tenant is thinking. Now, on your lease renewal form with the 3 options, I still want you to give some backup, some reasons, some justification for that rent increase. Often you'll briefly cite that you have to, say, pay increased year-over-year property taxes or higher hazard insurance, or if it's an apartment building that you have, maybe cite the higher utility costs that you have to pay. But with the 3 options, I still think it's important to give a reason. That's going to help you out. Part of the reason it's important to give your tenants options is that some tenants get pretty upset at a rent increase otherwise, because to them, the way the tenant's thinking is they're thinking, well, rent, that's just like throwing money away anyway. And now they think that they're just throwing more money away with a higher rent that you're hitting them with. And it's kind of another story, but, rent is not throwing money away because that tenant has the benefit of living there, just like your Hawaiian beach condo rental wasn't like throwing money away to you because you had the benefit of a sauna and an ocean view in a warm place. So your tenant often doesn't think like you. Tenants often don't even know that you have a mortgage on your rental home. Gosh, when I rented my first ever apartment years ago, which was a tiny studio pool house in Westchester, Pennsylvania. Yeah, that was my first ever apartment, $325 a month plus electric pool house where the property owner used to store his pool supplies. That's the first place I lived, okay? I was not born wealthy. But anyway, I was surprised to learn then in that arrangement that my landlord, Eric, he had a mortgage to pay on the property. And it was actually smart of him to tell me, his tenant, that, because that engendered some understanding and even some sympathy on my part. And it helped motivate me to pay him the rent on time every month. So make sure your tenant knows that you have some expenses. There's a few different ways to do that. And give reason, give justification for why you've raised the rent, because those expenses typically go up over time. So a lot of the time, a good idea just doesn't land well and make an impact unless it's executed properly, like it is here with your rent increase. Now, you might very well have a property manager, and yet you want to implement this 3 options rent increase plan. But just like you want to be careful of how you inform your tenants of rent increases, you want to think about how your property manager is thinking too. You don't really want to just direct your property manager to perform a new protocol. And the best way to get your property manager to implement the 3 option strategy for a rent increase, okay, if you don't think that they have a tactful way of delivering it, I would just say let your property manager know about doing this in a way where you make the property manager think that this whole thing was their idea. Make the property manager think things like this are their idea, and you won't get the credit for a good idea, but who cares about the credit? You care about getting a rent increase. That's who the winner is. It's not who got the credit, it's who got the result. And maybe you actually wonder, is it all worth it? You might think a 3 to 5% rent increase, that's kind of subtle, that's no big deal, and you're only keeping up with inflation that way anyway, so who cares, whatever. Oh, it's a bigger deal to you than a 3 to 5% rent increase, because the good news for you is that you're a leverage investor. And since you have a loan on the property and other expenses, your cash flow might jump up 10 to 20% per month, depending on your leverage position, just off a 3 to 5% rent increase, okay? And the 10 to 20% cash flow increase, that's what you feel every month. That has a real impact on you. I actually did a whiteboard video on how cash flow tends to increase at a rate significantly faster than inflation, and I'll put that in the show notes for you. So in summary, empower your tenant with rental increase options and further put them at ease by providing them with a rent increase reason. And congratulations, you have just given yourself a pay raise. And don't feel bad about giving yourself a raise on the backs of others, because here's why you shouldn't feel bad about raising the rent. Because to the tenant, that increase is merely commensurate with prevailing inflation approximately. And you're doing good in the world. You're providing sound housing. You've earned it. And, in your position as the investor versus them as the tenant, consider that you've taken on more risk than your tenant has. You have ongoing monthly expenses and mortgage debt, whether they pay you or not. So enjoy your deserved rent increase. We're talking about effective strategy for how you can get rent increases on your income property today. And increases are certainly going to be more successful in some geographic markets than others due to employment and wage and income growth in an area and among other factors. There's another great way for you to give yourself a pay raise if you work for an employer, and potentially you can give yourself that pay raise perhaps even today on this very day. A lot of people view investing in 401ks and other defined contribution retirement plans like 403bs or 457s or even IRAs. They view that behavior as normal. They think, well, that's just what you do. That's just what everyone does. Well, see right there, therein lies the problem. Wealth is not normal. And, it kind of begins with a mindset thing again. Look, no one changes the world with, I guess, normal notions. The phrase career track, just take that right there, okay? Career track, that is not a give beyond yourself notion. No one changes the world by reversion to job security, okay? Those two phrases right there, career track and job security, that stuff is quote unquote normal. Well, then do you think that anyone changes the world with quote unquote normal 401ks, which is basically dollar cost averaging into lousy retail financial products? No, they don't. That's because all those notions and behaviors I just mentioned there are normal, and we're back to the scarcity mentality is abundant and the abundance mentality is scarce again. So let me ask you something. We've talked about salary reduction plans before, but I want you to think about this in a new light. Let's just review here real quick first. Which of these two plans sounds better for your financial life and future? Okay, I'm going to give you two choices here. Which of these two plans sounds better for you and your family's financial life and future? Is it a salary reduction plan or is it a salary increase plan? Just pick one of those two and we'll hook you up with your choice right now. Which one is it going to be? Okay, it probably didn't take you more than a tenth of a second to think about that one. You want to be involved in a salary increase plan. But then why are you already participating in the salary reduction plan? And I've got kind of a new angle on this today. Now, I've mentioned a few times before that when 401ks sprouted in the early 80s, they were ominously dubbed salary reduction plans. It was soon realized they just had to scrap that name to foster employee participation. And since then, the plans haven't substantially changed. A salary reduction is principally what 401ks still do to you. And I've mentioned that the very creator of the 401k, Ted Benna, lamented years after he created them that he created a monster and that 401ks ought to be blown up because they've been chock full of hidden fees. They've experienced declining employer matches, but they're still salary reduction plans. That hasn't changed. Okay, so think about this way. Now, look, would you invest in a property with minus $250 cash flow? Okay, a negative cash flowing income property. Well, and I guess you couldn't even call it an income property if it cash flowed negative $250 technically, but would you buy that property? See, I wouldn't. I wouldn't even if it were in a high-flying Texas market and I was tempted to buy it for what feels like surefire future appreciation. Now, I know that you might think that sounds awfully conservative, but I wouldn't buy that property at minus $250 cash flow. You might. You probably wouldn't either. And here's why. You know why buying a minus $250 cash flowing property is bad? You know what that's like? It's like a salary reduction plan. You just reduced your salary every month by buying that property. Yeah, investing in the negative cash flowing property, that's about as bad as contributing to a 401k. Because either way, you're guaranteeing your salary reduction in the present in the mere hope for appreciation or capital gains in the future. 401ks and a negative cash flowing property are similar that way. So maybe it helps you see it better when you wear those glasses. You wouldn't buy a negative cash flowing property and you wouldn't invest in a 401k. So instead of the 401k salary reduction plan, opt in for the salary increase plan of buying cash flowing real estate, and you have just given yourself another pay raise. What's a salary increase plan? It's carefully bought cash flowing property. Rather than you paying it every month like a 401k, a cash flowing asset pays you every month in young age, in middle age, and in old age. And meanwhile, 401ks only start paying you late in life at age 59 and a half at the earliest. And by age 70 and a half, you must start pulling your money out of a 401k, and you must start paying the tax on it then too. With real estate, all of your capital gains tax can be avoided with a 1031, and I've never paid capital gains tax on real estate at all in my life, and I likely never will because of that 1031 vehicle. A carefully chosen leveraged cash flowing asset simultaneously tends to increase in value over the long term faster than a 401k. Income property has tax benefits that are the same or greater than either 401ks or similar tax-deferred defined contribution retirement plans. 401ks only defer your tax day until later. They don't eliminate it. And, a lot of people don't know 401ks, they're not even 100% tax deferred. Most people don't realize you still pay 7.6% tax on Social Security and on Medicare. And retirement plan proponents, they like to trump that your savings grow and compound tax-free after a while. And then at retirement, you can pay a lower tax rate when you pull it out. So that ought to work out for you. Well, guess what? It is not working out for people. It almost guarantees with that plan that it won't work out for you because those proponents, they're planning on you being in a low tax bracket at retirement, essentially meaning that you're retiring poor. And this is after years of both grinding in a job and denying yourself income from that very grind. Geez, who would actually design their life this way? That is absurd. Who would design their life that way? Well, the answer again is most people, normal people. They're deferring and denying their life, time, money, options, flexibility, experiences, and opportunity for yourself and your family. So I guess basically I'm asking you, do you want to enjoy the fruit of your labor while your fruit is still ripe? Of course you do. Otherwise, what good is the fruit? Life is better than eating rotten mangoes at age 70 and a half or whatever, but that's what most people are doing, and they're actually grinding just for that. See, when most people critique mutual funds or 401ks invested in mutual funds, they take a little magnifying glass to things, and they only look at small picture stuff. For example, they examine something like 12B1 fees. They're the fund's marketing fees of up to 1% that you pay. That harms you, but it's minor. Opt in for a salary increase plan for the rest of your life. It's called cash flowing income property. March into your human resources office tomorrow and stop that negative cash flowing vehicle from robbing your family of income and experiences and time for memories and lifestyle. All right, now I just want you to imagine something. What if you didn't go into the HR office tomorrow to cut off your negative cash flow? Just contemplate how you feel about walking into a different office tomorrow instead of that easy walk into your HR office, okay? Contemplate the old-fashioned way of handling a pay raise. Contemplate how comfortable you would feel asking your boss for a raise in their office tomorrow instead. You might work hard for months or years to try to warrant this raise. Years of showing up early, working late. You might compile a list of reasons over time to justify your raise. And then finally, when it's about time to go to your boss's office, you're still going to feel sweaty and nervous when it's time to make that approach. And as for the pay raise, you're going to have to be brazen. You're going to have to steel yourself. You might have even rehearsed your lines in the mirror to yourself beforehand, and you'll be taking an anxious, sweaty trip into your boss's office, and you're going to have to try to sell him or her on giving you a raise. When you're actually asking the boss the question about the raise, you might be afraid to put your hands on the boss's mahogany desk because you're afraid he's going to see the sweaty smudge marks and that you're nervous. And on top of all that, once you've asked, the boss's verdict is still out of your control. Instead, just cut off the negative outflow from your life-deferring 401k and give yourself a raise with each income-generating property that you buy. When you participate in a retirement plan, you're giving yourself an immediate pay cut. That's one thing that we know. That's one of the few guarantees that there really is with that you're giving yourself an immediate pay cut. It's actually similar to your boss giving you a demotion instead of a raise. Well, rather than that, just give yourself the raise. So between the dead money that you have in home equity or the suboptimal dollars that have reduced your salary inside a 401k, you have money that you didn't know you had that can be invested in income-producing real assets, and this is really good news for you. Few things, if anything at all, has as great of a financial impact in your life as increasing your income today and investing them in real cash-flowing assets. You will never be healthier, younger, and more alive than you are right now. You should quit deferring your life, and you should want to do that with a sense of urgency. Start living your dreams now. You will never be healthier, younger, and more alive than you are right now. Don't ask for a raise and hope that you get it. Give yourself a raise and know that you got it. We're coming back with more. You're listening to Get Rich Education. Are you looking to invest in your first investment property or grow your existing inventory? Highlands Residential Mortgage can help, offering down payments as low as 15% and credit score requirements down to 620. Their streamlined process is designed to help investors close their loans quickly and without any surprises. You need someone who knows cash flowing real estate and can help guide you through the muddy waters of today's lending environment. So call Graham Parham today, toll free at 855-326-6802. The Parham team can help you purchase or refinance any of your 1 to 4 family investment properties.
NMLS number 195724, 12001 North Central Expressway, Suite 750, Dallas, Texas 75243. Equal housing lender, not licensed in all states.
As a lot of investors know, multifamily real estate has been one of the best asset classes to be invested in most of the last decade. While the great deals have been harder to find lately, there are still opportunities in select markets where savvy investors can get lots of appreciation and strong cash flow if you have a great team. Dave Zook, founder and president of The Real Asset Investor, and his team have been very active in the multifamily space in Memphis, Tennessee. On the heels of the Great Recession of 2009, Dave and his team quietly started acquiring multifamily assets, and in the last few years, he has syndicated over 2,000 apartment units, creating strong cash flow streams and big appreciation for lots of their investors. It's not too late to get involved. If you're an accredited investor and you would like to learn more about investing in great multifamily apartments with a world-class team, email Dave and his team at info@therealassetinvestor.com.
This is David Campbell from Hassle-Free Cash Flow Investing. Listen to Get Rich Education with Keith Weinhold, and don't quit your daydream.
I'm Keith Weinhold. This is Get Rich Education, and I'm coming to you from the beautiful Rittenhouse Square section of Center City, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania today. Man, on this warm spring day, there are such great restaurants, shops, and architecture and atmosphere and urban energy here. I talked to some GRE listeners here in Center City, Philly, and I even thought about doing this show with a small live studio audience in front of me today, but we just couldn't quite pull that off with the venue in a timely fashion here. So we're here together, just you and I, and we're talking about ways to give yourself a pay raise today, and we've discussed two pretty innovative ways for you to do that directly. And you know, neither of those two, the rent increase option strategy, nor opting out of the salary reduction plan and into a salary increase plan, neither of those two require any additional ongoing work on your part. A third way to give yourself a raise that's, well, it's less direct. It has to do with the amount of free time that you create for yourself with real estate investing. And that has to do with the property manager. If you own rental property and you've been managing it for more than a year or two, I want you to get introspective and look inside yourself and ask yourself why you're still doing that. Is it because you've genuinely tried and you cannot find a competent manager in your area? Is it because you have some fear about loss of control? Or is it perhaps because you just feel like no one can do a better job of managing your property than you? All right, look, with property management, I kind of think about when a shopper goes to Home Depot to buy quarter-inch drill bits. You aren't there to buy quarter-inch drill bits because you want quarter-inch drill bits. You're there to buy quarter-inch drill bits because you want quarter-inch holes, okay? And by the way, I must have heard that handyman analogy somewhere else. fixing stuff or building stuff is not my gig. If I handled a drill with a 1/4-inch drill bit, I would probably only make a 1/4-inch hole right through the center of my hand. So just like you only get the drill bits because you want the holes, you also don't hire a property manager because you really want a property manager. You hire a manager because you want them to make your life nice and handle everything for you so that those electronic deposits from your 18 rental doors show up like clockwork in your Wells Fargo bank account every month. Property management, it's so interesting because the manager, they're arguably the most important member of your team, and yet they're the least respected at the same time. That's so wrong. Now, I was writing about property management for the Rich Dad Advisors blog a while ago. If my tenant has a leaky faucet or the lawn needs mowing, they sure don't contact me. In fact, they wouldn't even know how to. But see, I do want to make sure that they're being taken care of. I'm going to be responsible. Real estate investors don't need to be handy, but their landlords or their contractors do. When you start investing in real estate, it might be a good idea to manage your property for a little while at the beginning, but sooner than later, those that become the wealthiest, fastest, abandon self-property management. Okay, those that become wealthiest, fastest, abandon self-property management. They're the soonest to realize that their best and highest use is understanding investing, learning about tax reduction and searching for the next good deal and networking with people. Okay, only make occasional course corrections to your property manager's approach. Over the long term, your time is best spent managing your assets and your investments, not managing your individual tenants and properties. And this is really all about scalability. Scalability is that notion of being able to duplicate your business into something profitable and duplicatable. Okay, look, Subway restaurants. Subway does not make the best lunch that you've ever eaten, but they are the world's largest food chain because they have the best system in place. Subway would not ask one person, they would not ask one employee to bake the sandwich bread, stock the fridge, clean the restrooms, come up with promotional ideas, be the store accountant, expand operations to Argentina, and make all the customer sandwiches too. If they did, then how many customers could they serve if they took that approach? Now, if you owned 120 rental units, how would you handle all those inevitable repair service calls, monthly rent collections, scheduling of service people, mowing and raking the lawn, looking at the squeaky drum on the clothing dryer, adjudicating whom is responsible for the 1-inch holes in the drywall at move out, knowing the ins and outs of each one of your state you invest in, knowing each one of their landlord and tenant laws, and then handling all the accounting yourself. I mean, how could you possibly keep that up while simultaneously becoming the most effective investor that you can be? That would be ludicrous. And I like to say that dealing with tenants can be annoying, and dealing with tenants can cause you to lose faith in humanity. So don't do it, at least in a direct capacity. My gosh, I can't imagine how low my quality of life would be if I did all that stuff. Subway or another successfully scaled restaurant franchise, they know that their best and highest uses are, for example, market and demographic analysis or seeking tax incentives in a foreign country prior to expanding there, okay? It's not keeping Italian dressing from falling into the cheese slices, all right? As a real estate investor, sooner than later, your best and highest use, it shouldn't be continuing to practice your hardwood laminate flooring installation skill during a tenant vacancy and then making repeated round trips over to the property to show it to another prospective tenant. Once you leave that work to others, now you're leveraging more than dollars, you're leveraging your time and your team too. Property managers are paid to do things right. You only ensure that they do the right things. That's a better and higher use because your most valuable asset is your time, and it takes time to build knowledge. Knowledge is power. How far do you really want to go down the road of trading your time for dollars again? That's already what you're doing at your day job if you still have a day job. And do you want another job, or do you want to be an investor? So before you purchase a property, you just run the numbers and make sure to account for the typical 8 to 10% of gross monthly rent that a property manager takes for their service. Don't forget to add in and include any leasing fees. You just want to see that the rent income increases all expenses, including management. Well, that 8 to 10% gross monthly rent for the manager, that still leaves you with 90 to 92% of the gross monthly rent before expenses, and a property manager handles the headaches. And your property manager fees are usually tax deductible too. And managers often manage hundreds of properties, so they've typically negotiated discounted service rates from providers like plumbers and electricians and HVAC companies, and that's a rate lower than you could get if you use them yourself. In this way, you're now leveraging the manager, whom is leveraging economies of scale, scalability again, to often pass lower hourly rates onto you. That's like leverage within leverage. Ask your manager, find out if they do that. Managers handle all that ongoing maintenance and the repair of your property and their communication from the tenants. They collect the rent. They send you the monthly owner draw, also known as your check, and they all put it on one nice, tidy monthly income and expense statement for you to make your accounting easier. They understand the local landlord and tenant law and the most effective way to execute it, and they have all the forms and the systems. Hiring a property manager, that's what starts to make you scalable. How many properties could you buy and give to a manager? Well, I don't exactly know, but the answer is multiples more than you could buy and manage yourself. And investors have different strengths. Many of them are better handymen than me. Some might want to self-manage longer than others, but I just don't recommend doing it for long. Whether I talk to real estate flippers or wholesalers or note buyers or developers, it seems like they all desire to have the same end game in real estate. That is buy and hold. And one thing is for sure, and I'm emphatic about this one, finding a good property manager is key. In fact, it's usually even more important than the property itself. So find a good manager before you buy the property. And if you don't find a competent property manager, the property will soon be managing you, okay? Freedom of time is a prerequisite to wealth. So tenants don't call and ask me to fix a cabinet door at move-in or ask me to look at old carpet stains to adjust their security deposit at move-out. It's not my best and highest use, and it never will be. I managed my own property for a few years at the beginning, 5.5 years of self-management, in fact, and that was too long. That's one of my regrets. So what else do I know? The main thing is that I don't have to know because I have a property manager that does know a lot of these things that I don't need to know. Find a good manager, and you've just promoted yourself to a better and higher use. And see, now you have both the promotion and the pay raise, like we discussed earlier, all done outside anything normal like we detest. Consider buying an owner-occupied fourplex if that makes sense in your local market, or you've got access to something that I wish I knew about or had access to from the time that I started investing, because, man, this would have put me along farther, faster, and that is just one resource, one central place where the best properties in the best U.S. markets from the best providers are all in one place and all have property management in place and the property cash flows from day one. You can find that one central resource through our home site at getricheducation.com. Or you can just go directly to get market reports and provider contact details right there at greturnkey.com. That's the most direct way for you. That's an all-done-for-you solution there. And it's mostly single-family homes and occasionally up to fourplexes at greturnkey.com. Next week, we're going to have a different kind of guest here because he's not a professional speaker or a published author. He's, well, a GRE listener just like you, and we haven't done this before, so this ought to be very interesting to talk to a listener just like you next week. In your life, don't ask anyone for a pay raise. Give yourself permission to give yourself one with cash-flowing properties just like those at greturnkey.com. I'm Keith Weinhold. Until next week, live a life of abundance and don't quit your daydream.
You've been listening to Get Rich Education, telling you what the wealthy won't tell you about real estate and investing.
Nothing on this show should be considered specific, personal, or professional advice. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, financial, or business professional for individualized advice. Opinions of guests are their own. Information is not guaranteed. All investment strategies have the potential for profit or loss. The host is operating on behalf of Get Rich Education, LLC exclusively.
cash flow real estate investors nationwide and worldwide, this is Get Rich Education's Keith Weinhold. Forbes has rated Memphis, Tennessee as the #1 cash flowing market in the world. Our good friends at Mid-South Homebuyers have been Memphis's premier turnkey real estate provider for 14 years with a stellar reputation and an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. Owner Terry Kerr was born and raised in Memphis. Yeah, he knows the market and has renovated and sold over 1,000 houses in the Memphis area. Find out what their many repeat buyers already know. Their houses are completely renovated, even come with a 1-year builder's warranty and a lifelong rental guarantee. They're a perfect fit for the first-time out-of-state investor or the seasoned investor diversifying their portfolio. Mid-South Homebuyers' friendly staff makes investing easy. Learn more at midsouthhomebuyers.com or give them a call at 901-217-HOME. The preceding program was brought to you by your home for wealth building, GetRichEducation.com.